Hello, my name is Hannah Ross. I'm a biopsychology student at Oxford College, and I've been invited to your class today to get you guys excited for science before the school year starts. Kind of intrigue your interests, so to speak. So, if we could all imagine what living in 1848 was like, for example, if you were to get the pneumonia, there's no medicine for you, there's no one to really help you, your mom probably tells you, oh, it's bad air, and so eventually you die from it just because you can't get better if you get sick. Okay, 2014, you get a pneumonia, it's a bacterial kind, you can get an antibody, you're expected to make a full recovery, and life goes on. So back to 1848, if come in Phineas Gage, he is a um, man in his 20s and he's working on a railroad with his crew and he's the foreman. His job is to dig holes and put explosives, dynamite, inside of them with a tamping rod, which it was about 48 inches long and one side was a little bit skinnier than the other, so it kind of got thicker on one side, that diameter. One day in the fall, he and his crew were working and he accidentally lit some dynamite. He either wasn't paying attention or it was an accident, I'm not sure. And his tamping rod was shot at like high speed through his head and right out the other side. So it literally went straight through his head and fell back several yards behind him. So his crew was shocked. They ran over to him. I'm sure it was a huge bloody mess. And when they got there, he was conscious, so I'm not sure if he lost conscious or not, it's unsure, but he was awake and able to talk to them, which was shocking because everyone thought he was going to be dead after a dynamite explosion. What would you expect? So no, he didn't die, and he was brought to a doctor, Dr. Harlow, who was also shocked, and he managed to stop the hemorrhaging, replace some skull fragments, and get bone out of Gage's brain. So there was much complications, but a year later, Dr. Harlow managed to turn Phineas Gage back into his normal state, and he went home. However, soon after that, his friends and family began to notice that his personality had changed. They described him as no longer the Gage they knew. They knew him as a nice man, he was respectable, treated others well, and he just turned into, I've read a whole list of description words and they're just horrible. Like he was negative, a drunk, mean, etc. So yeah, obviously his personality changed, and then at this time it was revolutionary for them to even consider the fact that damage to your brain could also alter your personality. Now we look back on it and we can see that the tampering rod, it entered right under his left zygomatic arch, which is like your cheekbone. The tampering rod went through the base of the skull and then left by the brygma. So we know that this passes through the frontal lobe, and the frontal lobe, so Phineas Gage lost all social inhibitions. Pretty much a frontal lobotomy was performed on him, which is what changes personality. I mean, this part controls your emotions, your thinking, your decision making. So he lost all of that, and obviously it did change him because of that. Frontal lobotomies in the past were used, they pretty much just randomly took whatever part of the brain was there and it kind of put people into a very seduced mode, because when you lose that part of your brain, you can't have those actions anymore. So this was very important biologically because most people who study the brain only do so in, well, their most useful information for them is brain injury cases, and to have a patient who was still alive after it happened was crazy. I'm sure Dr. Harlow learned a ton, and he was able to pass his information on to others. And from a psychology standpoint, we realize that there is a connection between the brain and your physical actions. The question now is how the brain is related to your mind. So we can test your personality because it's observable. But what happens when your brain sustains injuries and you can't physically observe the consequences? So there's still a lot to find out, and psychologists are always researching, as are biologists, about the brain and their functions. So anyway, maybe you all can carry that research on, and who knows what you'll find out. So yeah, I hope that you got excited for science, and thank you.